Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's forecasting forum. And let's jump right in since we're going to have lots of things we want to talk about. So first of all, I just want to kind of like get a sense for who's around and who's here. So how many of you have like an Aries sun sign or rising sign who are here already? Because I think we still don't have full capacity. I think some people are still joining us. So for those of you who are already here, anybody has an Aries sun sign or rising sign? 1, 2, 3. No, nobody? Okay. And how many of you have any kind of planets or points in Cancer? Anybody has something in Cancer? Okay, I'm going to put my hand up because I do. I have the South Node in Cancer. You got the Ascendant in Cancer. That's right, Bear. Anybody else? Anything in Cancer? You have your Moon in Cancer, Diana. Yes, and your North Node. Diana has the North Node and the Moon in Cancer. Anybody else? Okay, so for those of us who have Cancer planets, we definitely want to pay attention when we talk about the solar eclipse, right? But before we go there, we just want to thank you, all of you, for your time, for being here right now. I know that for some of you, it's sort of like in the middle of the day. And also for those of you who are watching this as a recording, thank you for taking the time to watch it and for being present. And still, even if you're watching this as a recording, I just want to invite you to still engage with the questions that I'm asking and engage with your own birth chart as much as you can to make this as interesting as possible. Now, a little bit about myself for those of you who are completely new to these forecasting forums. I'm going to keep it brief. I'm originally from Austria, from Vienna, and I've lived in the United States since 1994. And I've lived in New York, then I've lived in Chicago, now I live in Pittsburgh. And so I've been around a little bit. And I've studied astrology since the early 90s. So I've been doing this for quite a while. And then in 2009, I added a coaching certificate to my astrology certificate. And so now I'm doing coaching and astrology. And I really love the combination of it because I love how much you can support people with both pieces and in different ways, right? Because astrology is very much about the mental understanding of how your energy works and what you're all about and how energy connects with each other. But the coaching piece is a little bit more addressing the emotional component of what goes on in our day-to-day existence, right? Because feelings are part of being a human being, right? And so we have to deal with stuff that comes up and, energy blockages or things that we're holding on to or things that we're having an aversion towards, right? So the coaching piece is really great for that type of stuff, right? Which cannot be necessarily addressed with the astrology. So I love the combination. But enough about myself. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing with today with this webinar. So we're going to talk about the Chiron station and retrograde phase. Chiron is already stationing and we'll go retrograde on July 5th. And then we also have an eclipse coming up. Actually, we're having 3 eclipses coming up, and the first one of these 3 eclipses will be on July 12th, and will be in Cancer. So therefore, we all have Cancer somewhere in our chart, right? But if you have personal planets and points in Cancer, that's definitely going to be a little bit stronger for you, especially if those planets and points are somewhere near the eclipse, so within 5 degrees of the eclipse, right? And the eclipse will be in 20.5 degrees of Cancer. So you want to take a look at that in your chart for yourself. But we'll do all of this together in a moment. So let me just say this, these are some of the questions that we're going to answer today, right? What will shift in regards to our healing journey and our soul's journey? Healing journey being connected to Chiron, soul's journey being connected to the eclipses, right? And where do 2.5 degrees of Aries show up in our own birth chart? Because that's the point in which Chiron is currently stationing, right? So where does that show up? And do you have personal planets in 26 to 29 degrees of Pisces or 0 to 4 degrees of Aries? And the reason why we're interested in particularly in those points is because those are the station points of Chiron as it's going retrograde, before it's going retrograde, right? And then as it's going retrograde, when it starts to stop again and go direct again at the end of the year, it will be 26 to 29 degrees of Pisces, right? So we're interested in that whole, all those points in our chart, basically. Now, where does 20.5 degrees of Cancer land in your birth chart? Why is that important? Because the eclipse will be in 20.5 degrees of Cancer. So we definitely want to know where that is, right? So we'll take a look at that. And then what houses in your chart are going to be most activated by these planetary shifts? And we're going to definitely talk about that in big detail as well, because the houses in our birth charts represent areas of life. And so we want to know, what area of life is most affected by what's currently going on and what's happening, right? So that's really of interest to us to understand. So let me just see if there is anybody else who wanted to say hi. Oh, Danielle has Venus and the North Node in Cancer. Okay, excellent. Very good, very good. So definitely of interest to all of you Cancerian people, what we're doing today. Now, one thing I want to say before we move on is that if I have your birth chart already, great, then you can ask me any questions and I can look at your birth chart and we can have a chat. If I don't have your birth chart yet, I won't be able to pull up your birth chart because it would take too much time. So you'd have to give me like your sign, your degree, your house placement. Like you'd have to kind of describe to me what's going on in your chart so I can answer your questions. Also, if there's anything that you're asking me that would take too much time to answer or to cover in this particular format of this webinar, then I will ask you to book a reading with me, even if it's just like a 25-minute reading, so that I can give you your full attention. But I will try and answer as many questions as possible, and I will only not answer a question if it's really just too big, right? So I hope you understand that. And I would also love it if we can focus our questions on the energies that we're covering in this forum. So basically, anything around the Chiron station retrograde or anything around the eclipse in Cancer, and also connected to what is an eclipse or what is eclipse season, or questions like that are perfect, right? Because then everybody gets something out of it. Now, as you can see here, I also wrote down that the eclipse season is from July 2nd until August 26th, which I think these are important dates to remember, because eclipse season is usually a time where we feel the shifts and changes that our soul wants us to undergo very strongly. And so this can be sort of like a time of uncertainty and a time where we feel maybe a little bit ungrounded or a little bit confused with what might be going on. It's also a time where we can experience, and this might not be true for every single person, but if you have, if the eclipses are connecting with some of the natal points in your personal chart, then this is definitely going to be true for you. Eclipses can really bring up endings and beginnings of some sort. So there's something around, new beginnings that can happen, but also, something might be ending in order for a new beginning to unfold. So we tend to be sort of like in uncharted territories during eclipse season. So that's something to remember, that we need to find ways to ground ourselves and to make sure that we have rituals in place or support systems in place that help us get through this time, right? Because it can be sometimes a little bit, ooh, oh my God, that type of feeling. All right. So let's move to the next page here. Let's see what's coming up. So this page here, all of you should have this as a handout in your email that I sent you today. And also, if I send this as a recording out, then you also have it in the email of the recording. So this is a really beautiful overview for 2018, for the whole year of 2018. And it gives you sort of an idea of what's happening each month. And of course, these are just bullet points. There's nothing in detail there. But if you want to know what all of these things actually mean in plain English, then, you know, definitely read my weekly forecasts, and I will talk about all of this stuff in my weekly forecast at some point. Okay, so like for next week, I've already written the blog for next week, so I will be talking about the eclipse season, what that's all about. I'll be talking about the Jupiter station. I am talking about the Chiron retrograde also in the weekly forecasting form. So all of that will be mentioned, right? What we will be doing here today is really more of a I will talk about what the meanings are as well, but I want to also focus on how does this apply to me personally, to my own birth chart, right? So we can really take a look and feel more empowered and feel more of a sense of, I can see where this is landing in my chart. And so now I can make use of this energy, and I can get ready to use the energy to the best ability, or in the best way that serves me, right? Does that make sense, guys? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. So let's move to the next chart here. Now this is my birth chart, and both of these are my birth chart. Basically this here. Hold on, I just want to make sure that we're still recording. Yeah, we are. Okay, great. Can you guys still see what I'm sharing here? Can you see my charts here, or yeah, you can. Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that it's showing up. Okay, fantastic. So this chart on the left side is the time passages chart of my birth chart, and this chart on the right hand side is my astro.com birth chart. They're both exactly the same charts, just that they look slightly different, right? And so that's why I put up both of these charts, because some of you might feel more familiar with the time passages chart, and some of you might feel more familiar with the astro.com chart, right? And I know I say that every single time, but for those of you who are new, you know, I have to sort of repeat that for the people that see this for the first time. So thanks for being patient with the repetition of everything that I'm saying sometimes, right? Now, what we're looking at, so I want to first talk about the solar eclipse, and then I'm going to talk about the Chiron station and retrograde phase. So the solar eclipse is going to be in 20.5 degrees of Cancer, right? And so basically, let me say a little bit about the solar eclipse before we look at where that is in our chart, right? So we have sort of like a context in which we're looking at that in our chart. So the solar eclipse is the first of 3 eclipses that's happening this summer. So this will be within the next 6 weeks, we'll have 3 eclipses, right? And eclipses usually come in pairs, but sometimes there can also be a 3rd eclipse that sort of like, you know, weaves its way into the other 2 eclipses. So this time we have 3. And so this particular eclipse is sort of like a preview of eclipses that are going to be coming in 2019. And the reason for that is because the eclipse is always connected to the moon nodes, right? The north node and the south node in the chart. And if I'm just going to circle the south node here and the north node here, this is what it looks like. The north node looks like a horseshoe, right? And the south node looks like a horseshoe that's turned upside down, right? So wherever that is in a chart, in your chart, those are your own personal moon nodes, right? But then by transit, and actually let me show you the chart here by transit. So this is the chart for July 12th for the solar eclipse, right? So as you can see here, the sun and moon conjunct in Cancer, and here are the moon nodes, and the moon nodes are in a low degree of Leo and Aquarius, okay? And so the reason why this is an unusual eclipse is because usually eclipses are in the same sign as one of the moon nodes or both of the moon nodes. But because this lunation, or this new moon is very close to the moon nodes by degree, right? It's about 15 degrees apart from each other. And so this is sort of a wide orb, but you know, it's still considered an eclipse. And even though it's sort of like a partial eclipse and it's not a very super strong eclipse, but it is an eclipse, so we'll still feel it. So the reason why this is unusual is because this is sort of like a preview of the time when the moon nodes will start to move into Cancer and Capricorn, which will happen in the fall of 2018. So in November 6th of 2018, the moon nodes will switch to Cancer Capricorn, and they will remain there until May of 2020. And so that means that the eclipses that will happen between 2019 and 2020, they will all be connected to the moon nodes being in Cancer Capricorn. So therefore, they're going to be much stronger at that point. So this is why this is a preview and sort of like a new beginning of a new eclipse cycle. So what we're getting to feel is like, okay, what are we going to be doing in 2019 and 2020 in terms of our soul's journey and our soul's evolving? And because the North Node will be in Cancer and the South Node will be in Capricorn, we're being invited to focus more on self-care and nurturing ourselves and being in alignment with our emotional body and with our emotional needs, right? The North Node is always the place that we want to get to, or that we want to explore, and that we want to put more effort and energy into. The South Node is the place where we where there's a lot of energy already on the South Node. So that's the place where we want to be more conscious in how we use the energy and make the energy sort of like that of a higher vibrational energy. And in Capricorn, of course, that's connected to, you know, our authority, our inner authority, how capable we feel in the world, and also our ability to manifest and produce something out there in the world. So we need to use that at its highest vibration, right? Once the moon nodes move into those two signs. Now, the last time we had a North Node solar eclipse in Cancer was July 1st, 2000 and June 21st, 2001. So this means that those were the times when we definitely felt that same drive, that same wanting to connect on a more nurturing level, wanting to connect more with other people on a more emotional level, you know, maybe wanting to connect with family. So the eclipse is really about home, you know, family, our roots, our emotional foundation in life, you know, how secure we feel in life. It is about our physical home. It's about our upbringing, our connection with the mother archetype, right? Because the moon represents the mother archetype. So how do we connect to the mother archetype within ourselves and outside of ourselves? So with other women, right? With our actual mother, and then also internally with the mother inside of us. Or if you are a mother, how do you connect to the mother archetype as a mother, right? And then also it's about the home for our soul, right? Because the soul needs a physical home, a physical anchor, right? In order to be in this lifetime. So the soul seeks the physical body as a home. And so it's also about being on this planet as a soul being. What does that mean? To feel connected to ourselves as a human being and a soul being, right? And then it's also about increasing the internal feeling of home, right? And this is really not meant necessarily literally, but, you know, like, how do you feel at home with yourself, right? I mean, that's very important to know too. And how can we get to feel more at home with ourselves, right? And that usually happens when we nurture ourselves, when we care for ourselves, when we're really good to ourselves. You know, when we mother ourselves, when we parent ourselves, we tend to feel more at home with ourselves. So this is a really big part of this eclipse and the preview of this eclipse cycle, right? And then the last thing I should mention is that there's also a connection with our internal sense of security, right? Because Cancer is all about how secure do I feel, you know, in the world inside of me. And so in order to feel really secure, we need to feel really rooted in our physical, emotional bodies. If we feel disconnected from our physical body and from our emotional body, it's very difficult to feel secure. So to the degree that we're disconnected from that, to that degree, we're also not going to feel safe in the world. And so this is really important to understand, because once we understand that, we can do something about it, right? We can start to look at, okay, how can I start to feel more connected to my emotional body? How can I start to feel more connected to my physical body in a healthy way, in a way where I can nurture it, where I can be there for it, right? Physically and emotionally. And so that's important. And of course, I always say, you know, the moon is our inner baby, right? And the moon rules Cancer. So Cancer is really also the part of us that's very sensitive and it needs a lot of love and care. You know, there's this emotional and physical sensitivity. You know, what does a baby need, right? A baby needs shelter. A baby needs food. A baby needs love. A baby needs, you know, like feel comfortable on a physical level. You know, when a baby is too hot or too cold, it starts to cry, right? So these are some things to consider for ourselves, you know, in terms of like, how do we take care of things like that, right? Okay, now there's a bunch of aspects that are going to be happening with this solar eclipse. I'm not going to go into them in detail because I will be talking about that in my solar eclipse video, which you will be able to watch. And then also I will be writing about it in the weekly forecast as well. So just very briefly, the solar eclipse will oppose Pluto, very important. So you can see here Pluto on the top of in Capricorn, and then the eclipse down here, which could indicate that something that has been suppressed for a long time or that has been suppressed for a while is going to come to the surface, especially in connection with other people, right? Because it's an opposition. Now, there's also a trine to Neptune, and then kind of like a wide trine to Jupiter as well. But this trine is definitely very strong. And that is all about being able to allow for feelings to flow more and giving ourselves permission to feel, being gentler and kinder with ourselves and with other people. And then there's also going to be a grand trine in Earth. So you can see here, Venus is going to make a trine to Saturn and a trine to Uranus. So you can see this trine here. It's all in Earth. Right? So we basically have a water trine and an earth trine, which is the feminine energies, right? So there's a lot of feminine flow. And if we tap into that feminine energy, we can really start to find a little bit of a better balance between our very much usually conditioned masculinity that we, most of us identify with, and balance out a little bit with the feminine, which is really more about receiving and allowing and you know, being able to be with what actually is, right? Being very present in the now moment. The earth and the water signs are much better at that than the fire and the air signs, right? Okay, so then the other thing that I should mention here is that Uranus is going to square the moon nodes. So you can see here, Uranus is in 2 degrees of Taurus, squaring, you know, North Node and South Node in Aquarius and Leo, which are both in 5, almost 6 degrees. So it's sort of like a wide square at this point, but it's going to get more and more closer. And it will be exact in October of, late October, early November of this year, of 2018. So this square to the moon nodes is important because whenever we have a planet that squares the moon nodes, this is an invitation for us to pay more attention to that planet and to integrate its energy into the soul path that we're on. And so currently, collectively speaking, we're on this soul path between the Aquarian energy, which is all about, you know, our vision for life, our dreams for life, our connecting with causes and like-minded people or groups of people that we have an affinity or affiliation with, but doing that in a conscious way, in a way where we're not tapping into the lower vibration of the Aquarian energy, which can be quite dogmatic and quite can be quite sort of rebellious as well, and kind of like against, like having sort of an aversion towards someone who's not like you, right? So we want to be conscious of that we're not tapping into these lower vibrations with that south node. And so the path here is to move more into our heart, more into our joy, to really get connected with what brings us joy in life, what we feel is a creative process for us. Who are we as creative beings, right? So that's our collective soul journey right now. And so with Uranus squaring that, we're being invited to integrate more about the energy that's connected to innovation and to forward thinking, really allowing ourselves to visualize, where are we going? Where are we going in with this, on this planet? Like basically, like what is our relationship to the earth, to this planet, and be more forward thinking and be more innovative in our approach to how we connect to life, and we also want to be more grounded and more realistic in how we innovate and how we when we do have visions for the future, or when we are forward thinking, we want to be more grounded in reality with that, right? So that's really what needs to be integrated in order for us to move forward on our soul's journey right now. So let's take a look at this chart here. So this here is my natal chart in the middle, right? And then on the outside, we have the transits of July 12th solar eclipse. So you can see here 20.5 degrees is up here in my 9th house, right? And so basically what's happening here is we want to take a look at where does this eclipse land in my birth chart, and where do I need to bring, a new approach to family or home, or, to my own sense of security, or, all the things that I already mentioned, that the solar eclipse is about, right? So let's take a look at that. Does everybody have their birth chart handy? Let's take it all out of your folders or computer or phone or wherever you have it. And if you watched this as a recording, then please feel free to access your birth chart right now and pull it up. And then just see, where does 20.5 degrees of Cancer fall in your birth chart. So thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for joining me today, for being here, for asking questions. This was a lot of fun. I hope this was supportive and helpful for you guys with your own birth charts, and to understand a little bit better, how to move with the Chiron station and the retrograde, how to move a little bit better with the solar eclipse. And, also, of course, feel free to read in the weekly forecasts. I will always talk about each of these things in detail in each of my weekly forecasts as well. Okay, all right, guys, have a good one. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you on August 1st, if you're able to join. If not, then feel free to get the recording, watch the recording, and I'll see you. Bye-bye. Have a good one.